welcome to the deep dive.
Hey.
Today, we're tackling something I think we've all thought about, like what makes some organizations just thrive while others kind of flounder.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got a really interesting mix of sources for this deep dive.
Yeah.
From Simon Sinek's Leaders Eat Last, we've got some historical parallels, even some poetry thrown in there.
Wow.
And it seems like you're really interested in like the human element of success.
Yeah.
Like how do we create a work experience that feels meaningful, fulfilling, all that good stuff.
Right.
What jumps out at you from all this?
Well, it's interesting because all these sources are like pointing at the same idea,
Okay.
which is human behavior.
Right.
Like that's at the heart of it all.
Yeah.
Whether it's biology, anthropology,
Yeah.
economics,
Right.
even poetry.
Yeah.
It's about, understanding how people operate in a group.
Mm-hmm.
That's key.
Okay, so let's jump into Leaders Eat Last.
Okay.
Sinek introduces this idea of the circle of safety. And he has some pretty compelling examples in there. Like,
Yeah.
The A-10 pilot, Johnny Bravo, risking his life to save some soldiers in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
But, beyond, like, the heroism of it all,
Yeah.
what's the deeper takeaway there? What makes that story so powerful? And how does it apply to, just the average workplace?
Well, I think what resonates with people about the Johnny Bravo story
Mm-hmm.
is that it taps into that primal instinct we have to protect our own.
Yeah.
It's like when you see a group of animals circling to protect their young,
Right.
it's visceral,
Yeah.
beyond logic or reason.
Mm-hmm.
So in the workplace, that translates to a sense of trust and belonging.
Okay.
Like if you know your team has your back,
Right.
you're more willing to take risks.
Yeah.
You're going to innovate. You're going to push yourself further.
Right.
You're not worried about messing up or
Mhm.
like being punished for trying new things.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like you're creating that safety net so people
Yeah.
can just perform their best without constantly looking over their shoulder.
Exactly.
But how do you actually create that environment?
Yeah.
You can't just be like, hey, we're a team, let's all trust each other.
Right. It's not just words.
Yeah.
It's actions.
Okay.
And Sinek gives us Bob Chapman,
Okay.
CEO of Barry Bremer, as a great example of a leader who shifted the culture of an organization
Mhm.
by focusing on empathy.
I've heard of him. He's big on that whole people-centric approach.
Yeah, he is.
So tell me more about what he did.
Well, he started by listening.
Okay.
He actually went out and talked to his employees,
Mhm.
not just the execs,
Right.
but the people on the factory floor, the ones who were often overlooked.
Okay.
And, he heard stories about how they were treated differently than office staff.
Yeah.
How they felt like cogs in a machine.
Yeah.
And it was really eye-opening.
Right. It's so easy to get caught up in, like, the day-to-day
Totally.
and forget the human impact of, like, all the decisions we make, right?
Absolutely.
So how did he actually change things?
Well,
Did he just make a company-wide announcement like, hey, everyone, let's be nicer to each other?
no. It was deeper than that.
Okay.
He removed the symbolic barriers
Okay.
that created division.
Yeah.
Like, time clocks for factory workers, but not for office staff.
Right.
He made sure that everybody had access to the same benefits and opportunities,
Mhm.
regardless of their role.
Okay.
It was about sending that message that everybody's valued,
Yeah.
everybody's respected.
It's interesting because he didn't just, like, throw money at the problem.
Right.
It was about, like, addressing the underlying issues.
Right.
Like the stuff that made people feel like they weren't truly part of the team.
Exactly.
So what was the impact?
Well, the impact was significant.
Okay.
Employees started to feel more engaged, more willing to go the extra mile.
Right.
Productivity went up,
Mm.
and the company thrived.
Okay.
So it's a great example of how a focus on empathy can lead to, really tangible results.
So we've got this idea of the circle of safety.
Right.
And we've seen how empathy can be like a powerful tool for building that trust,
Yeah.
belonging.
Mm-hmm.
But Sinek also goes into like the biological underpinnings of this,
He does.
like how our brains are wired for connection and cooperation,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
He talks about those brain chemicals,
He does. He talks about
endorphins, dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin,
Yeah.
and how they influence our actions and motivations within a group, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so without getting too technical here,
Okay.
can you give me a sense of how these brain chemicals play into, the workplace?
Sure. So think about it this way.
Okay.
Endorphins are natural painkillers.
Right.
They help us push through those tough challenges.
Mm-hmm.
Dopamine is It's the reward chemical. It motivates us to achieve goals.
Okay.
Serotonin is tied to like pride and recognition.
Right.
So that encourages us to contribute to the group. And oxytocin, that's the trust hormone.
Right.
It's what allows us to form those strong bonds and cooperate.
Okay.
So you can see how all of these play a role in creating, a thriving, productive work environment.
So it's like we're wired for collaboration, connection, all of that.
Yeah.
But then Sinek also warns about the dangers of what he calls abstraction. What's he getting at there?
Well, he's talking about the tendency to prioritize abstract goals.
Okay.
Like, maximizing shareholder value
Right.
or hitting quarterly targets
Right.
over the well-being of the people who are actually doing the work.
Yeah.
And he uses some pretty chilling examples,
Yeah.
like, the sinking of the Titanic.
Right. Where the company prioritized cost cutting over safety and the consequences were disastrous.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So it's like a stark reminder that sometimes in pursuit of those like abstract goals,
Yeah.
we lose sight of the human element.
We do. We lose sight of the human cost.
Yeah.
And he argues that this kind of abstraction is happening all around us, not just in those, extreme cases.
Yeah.
It's in the way we structure our organizations, the metrics we prioritize, even the language we use.
Yeah, it's like we get so caught up in the numbers game that we forget about the real people involved.
Exactly.
And that's where the danger lies.
Yeah. So this brings us to another, important question.
Yeah.
If we know that this abstract mindset can be so detrimental, how do we shift our focus back to the human element?
Right. How do we create that culture where you prioritize people without sacrificing results?
Yeah.
It's a tough balance, right?
It is.
I mean, you can't just ignore profit and efficiency.
Right.
But you can't just treat people like disposable resources either. So what does Sinek suggest?
Well, he points to the power of shared struggle.
Okay.
And real human connection.
Right.
He argues that when we face challenges together, when we have that shared sense of purpose that goes beyond individual gain, we tap into a different kind of motivation,
Right.
one that's more sustainable and ultimately more fulfilling.
That reminds me of something you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
The story of Captain Marquet
Right.
and the USS Santa Fe.
Yeah.
He took a submarine crew that was ranked dead last
They were.
and turned them into top performers. But he didn't do it by, barking orders or, cracking the whip.
Yeah.
He did something much more radical.
He did.
He empowered them.
He did.
I bet some people question that.
Oh, yeah.
Like, giving a bunch of sailors on a nuclear submarine more control?
Right.
That sounds kind of risky.
It does.
What made him think it would work?
I think he recognized that true leadership isn't about being in control all the time. It's about creating an environment where people feel trusted.
Okay.
Empowered
Yeah.
to contribute their best work.
So it was about creating that environment where they felt safe to take ownership.
Exactly.
And the results speak for themselves to me.
They do.
That crew went from the worst to the best in the fleet.
Yeah.
That's pretty incredible.
It's a testament to the power of trusting your people and giving them that space to excel.
And that ties into the whole shared struggle thing.
It does, yeah.
So, when Marquet empowered his crew, he essentially created a challenge that they had to tackle together.
Right.
They weren't just following orders.
No.
They were part of finding the solutions,
Exactly.
making the decisions.
And that can be really powerful,
It's like shifting the dynamic
Totally.
from us versus them to we're all in this together.
You were all in the same boat?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that unity, that can be so powerful, especially when you're facing adversity.
Oh, absolutely.
And Sinek argues this is something we've lost touch with
We have.
in modern society.
Yeah.
He contrasts the greatest generation.
Right.
They went through the Depression, World War II, with, what did he call it, the me generation?
The me generation, yeah.
That came after.
Right.
It's like we've become so focused on, individual achievement
Yeah.
and, material success
Right.
that we've forgotten about collective purpose.
Right. We've forgotten what it means to sacrifice.
Shared sacrifice.
Exactly.
And it's not just historical trends.
Yeah.
It's happening in organizations right now.
Right.
Think about companies that prioritize, short-term profits over long-term sustainability.
Yeah, yeah.
Or value individual performance over team collaboration.
Yeah.
It's like they're stuck in that,
That dopamine loop.
dopamine loop,
Yeah.
chasing that next reward
Right.
without thinking of the bigger picture.
Exactly.
And Sinek says this kind of thinking, it's not only unsustainable,
It is.
But it's also unfulfilling.
Yeah.
Right.
We're social creatures.
Mm-hmm.
We crave connection.
Yeah.
We crave purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And when we find that in our work, it transforms the experience.
So it's not just about feeling good.
Right.
It's about doing good.
Exactly.
And that ties into something else that Sinek talks about a lot, which is real human connection.
Right. It's not enough to just have shared goals or a common mission.
Yeah.
We need those genuine face-to-face interactions to really build trust and understanding.
He's pretty adamant about that.
He is.
He even talks about the limitations of technology.
Right.
Virtual communication.
Yeah.
I mean, as convenient as it is to connect online,
there's
something about being physically present with someone that just creates a deeper level of connection.
It's like that saying, people forget what you said, people forget what you did, but they never forget how you made them feel. That's a good one.
Right.
Yeah.
And that feeling, that sense of connection, I mean, that's so much stronger when you're face to face.
He brings up the Milgram experiment, where people were more likely to obey like harmful orders when they were separated from the person they were hurting.
Yeah.
It's pretty chilling, right?
Yeah.
Like how easily we can detach ourselves from the human consequences when we lack that connection.
Right. Like the further we are from the impact of our decisions, the easier it is to make choices that might actually harm others.
Right.
But when you're face to face, when you see the look in someone's eyes, hear the tone of their voice, it's much harder to ignore that human element.
Exactly.
And that's why he's such a proponent of in-person gatherings.
He is.
You know, even in our increasingly digital world.
Right.
He talks about blog world.
Yeah.
Thousands of, bloggers, podcasters, they primarily connect online, but they still feel this need to come together in person.
They do.
So it's really a testament to the power of that real human connection.
It is.
It's like we crave that sense of community, that shared experience. And you can't quite replicate that online.
You can't.
I think that's something we're all struggling with right now.
Yeah.
Finding those meaningful connections amidst all the like noise and distractions.
Totally. Yeah. It's not just about our personal lives either.
No, it's about our workplaces too.
Our workplaces, our communities.
Think about like the decline of civility in Congress. I wonder if that's partly due to the fact that they spend less time interacting in person, debating face to face, building those relationships that, foster understanding, compromise.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the more we rely on virtual communication, the easier it is to like dehumanize each other,
To forget there's a real person.
Right.
With feelings and perspectives behind those screens.
Yeah.
And Sinek says this has a direct impact on leadership.
It does.
He believes that true leaders prioritize that human connection.
Yeah.
Make the effort to get to know their people.
Right.
Understand their motivations.
Yeah.
Create an environment where everyone feels seen, heard. So it's not just about being a good manager. It's about being a good human.
It is.
And I think that message, it resonates with people.
It does.
Especially now, when we're all craving authenticity.
Authenticity, connection. Yeah.
And this brings us to another crucial element of leadership that Sinek emphasizes.
Okay.
Which is integrity.
Right.
He believes that honesty, transparency, they're essential for building trust.
Right.
And creating a strong circle of safety.
Yeah.
He tells that story about the Marine officer who fell asleep during a training exercise and tried to deny it at first.
Right.
So what's the lesson there?
It's about owning up to our mistakes.
Yeah.
Even when it's tough.
Right.
Sinek argues that true leadership isn't about being perfect.
Right.
It's about being accountable.
Okay.
When we try to hide our flaws, shift blame, we erode trust.
Yeah.
We damage our credibility.
Like that old saying, the cover-up is worse than the crime.
Exactly.
And that applies to, individuals, but also organizations.
Organizations,
Companies that try to sweep their mistakes under the rug.
Right.
Or prioritize profit over ethics.
Yeah.
They end up losing trust.
They do.
Their employees, their customers, the public.
Okay.
And that trust is so essential for creating a sustainable, thriving organization.
It is the foundation of that circle of safety.
Okay, so we've got empathy.
Yeah.
We've got shared struggle.
Right.
Real connection. Integrity. It seems like all of these are kind of interconnected, right? Contributing to that culture where people feel valued, supported, inspired to do their best.
Exactly.
And I think that's what makes Sinek's message so powerful.
Yeah.
It's not just about, like, leadership in that traditional sense.
No.
It's about creating a better way of working.
Yeah.
A better way of being together.
Absolutely.
It's about tapping into those primal instincts we have for connection, cooperation, and channeling them into something positive, productive.
Yeah.
And that's something we can all strive for.
Absolutely.
No matter what our title or position is.
It's about recognizing that we're all in this together.
Yeah.
We all have a role to play
right.
in creating, a more humane and fulfilling world.
It feels like we keep coming back to this tension between, like, the individual and the collective, like personal ambition versus the need for belonging. So where do we find that balance?
That's the big question, right? I don't think there's an easy answer.
Right.
But, Sinek does give us some clues. He says we need to shift from what's in it for me to how can I contribute.
So, like, reframing success, not just in terms of, like, personal gain, but in terms of, like, the positive impact we have on others in the world around us.
Yeah, exactly. And he gives the example of, like, the 12-step program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And that last step is all about helping other alcoholics.
Okay.
So it's this idea of service, finding fulfillment through contributing to something larger than yourself.
That's an interesting connection.
Yeah.
It's like, by focusing on helping others, we actually end up helping ourselves.
Right.
We break free from that dopamine loop of always chasing the next reward.
Right.
And we find, like, a deeper sense of purpose.
Yeah, and that purpose doesn't have to be, like, some grand, one-changing mission. It can be, like, supporting a colleague, mentoring someone, or just being a better listener in our everyday interactions.
Right, like recognizing that we all have something to offer.
Yeah.
Even those small acts can make a difference.
They really can. And I think that's where leadership comes in,
Yeah.
Sinek says that anyone can be a leader. It's not about your title.
Right.
It's about stepping up, creating those circles of safety in our own little worlds.
Right. Our families, our workplaces, our communities. Like, he's challenging us to be Johnny Bravos in our own way.
He is.
Looking for those opportunities to make a difference.
Right.
However big or small.
And not waiting for someone else to fix things.
Right.
It starts with us.
Taking responsibility for each other.
Yeah, for the well-being of those around us. And contributing to a more, humane and fulfilling world.
It's interesting because we've talked about these historical parallels.
Yeah.
And how, like, Sinek talks about how these major crises, like the Depression, World War II, they actually brought people together.
They did.
They created that sense of community, shared purpose.
Shared sacrifice.
Right.
Yeah.
So do you think we need another crisis?
Ooh, that's a good question.
To, like, wake us up to the importance of those values?
I hope not.
Yeah.
I really hope not.
I mean, it seems like we have enough evidence right now that things aren't working.
We do. I mean, look at the anxiety, the depression, the burnout,
isolation,
social isolation. Yeah.
It's like we've just become so disconnected, so focused on individual achievement, material success.
Right.
We've lost sight of what really matters.
I think Sinek's message is like an antidote to that. It's a call to return to our humanity, to rediscover connection, collaboration, and build a world where people feel valued, supported, inspired to contribute.
Yeah, that's a hopeful vision.
It is.
And I think it's one that resonates with a lot of people.
Yeah.
We're all craving that.
We are.
That sense of belonging, that purpose, that connection.
Yeah. And it's not just about feeling good either.
Yeah.
It's about doing good, right?
Yeah.
It's recognizing that we're all connected and that our actions have an impact on the world.
This deep dive has really gotten me thinking differently about, like, leadership, success, and my own role in, like, creating a more fulfilling and meaningful life, not just for myself, but for everyone around me.
That's what it's all about, right?
Yeah.
Taking these ideas and putting them into action.
Starting small. Being intentional. Making that effort to contribute to something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah.
So for you listening, what resonated with you the most from this deep dive? What are you going to take away and apply to your own life? We'd love to hear your thoughts. And remember, as Sinek says, leadership is not about being in charge. Leadership is about taking care of those in your charge. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.